The first warning shot wasn't the layoffs, or the cease and desist letter that would come later, or even Kevin's smug little upturned smirk that made you want to staple his eyelids to his forehead. No, the moment I should have known things were going sideways was when I caught my boss, Mark, a man I'd known for 8 years, hovering behind my workstation, reading my screen like it owed him rent. Looked like he was trying to memorize every line of code I'd ever written, like a vulture studying blueprints for a meal it hadn't killed yet. I was finalizing the compression routine on Innovate, the software I'd built from the digital dirt up. 2 years of bleeding fingers, skipped holidays, and debugging so intense, I started dreaming in stacked traces. I just patched a memory leak Kevin couldn't find if it bit his man bun, and I was feeling good. Kind of good you only get when something that once lived in your imagination is about to be born into the world, living and breathing in runtime. Oh, and quick thing before we go deeper into this beautiful digital betrayal, 97% of you are listening without subscribing. Yep, you, I see you. If you want more stories like this, the kind that make your coffee taste stronger and your trust issues feel validated, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Really keeps our team fueled on coffee, revenge, and petty satisfaction. Anyway, I turned to Mark and said, "You lost?" Or just admiring how a proper algorithm looks. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something was off. He didn't say anything about the feature we'd spent weeks arguing with legal over. Didn't ask why the load balancer was finally humming like a purring cat. No jokes. No questions. Just a polite grunt and a stiff walk back to his corner office like a man trying to pretend he hadn't just watched you undress through your window. I should have smelled the rot then. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed late. Again. Cleaning up Kevin's Git commits like a mom scrubbing crayon off the walls. The guy once pushed an update that crashed the test server because he forgot semicolons were a thing. And yet somehow, in meetings, he'd lean back like a TED Talk messiah, spouting buzzwords and sipping cold brew like he was the second coming of Linus Torvalds. That day, he sauntered over, tie loosened just enough to look startup casual, and said, "Hey, heard the suits are finally realizing Innovate might be our golden goose." He winked, like we were in on something together. Then added, "You've done great work, Susan. Just make sure you're not too married to the code, you know? We're all just part of the bigger picture." I stared at him for a second, processing the oily film that was his entire personality. The bigger picture, I repeated, deadpan. Exactly. Alignment, synergy, all that. He smiled and walked off like he'd just blessed me with corporate enlightenment. Meanwhile, Mark kept dodging my questions about the post-launch roadmap. Every time I tried to schedule time to go over the upcoming sprint or talk about long-term feature sets, he'd push it to next week, said we were in flux, that we should be agile. The kind of boardroom yoga speak you use when you're about to shove someone out of a moving vehicle but want them to feel peaceful about it. But I didn't push. I figured maybe they were reorganizing, maybe they were overwhelmed. I'd been the reliable one for years, the quiet one. The one who didn't ask for raises because I thought quality work would speak for itself. That's the kind of stupid optimism you hold onto when your job becomes your identity. So I kept building. I kept fixing Kevin's bugs. I kept skipping dinners and ignoring texts from friends and pouring every shred of myself into Innovate because I truly believed, that it would matter. Turns out the only thing it mattered to was them. Just not in the way I thought. It started with a calendar invite titled Company Direction and Growth Strategy Mandatory Attendance. No subject line, no notes, just that sterile corporate phrasing that makes your gut clench before your brain even catches up. Half the team thought it was another Q3 pep talk. The other half were already whispering layoffs over lukewarm coffee in the break room like it was Voldemort's damn name. The meeting was set for 9:30 a.m. sharp. By 9:28, every swivel chair in the conference room was filled, and the overflow folks were lining the back wall with their laptops clutched like life jackets. I slid in next to Danielle from DevOps. She looked like she hadn't slept since Jenkins broke last Tuesday. Mark was there already, standing next to the CEO, Gavin, who had the permanent expression of someone trying to figure out if he smelled a fart or if it was just his own soul rotting from inside. Beside them stood Marcy, the head of HR, wearing her signature lemon lipstick grimace and holding a manila folder like it was handcuffed to her wrist. And Kevin, nowhere in sight. Gavin cleared his throat and launched into a word salad of nonsense. market headwinds, tightening the belt, navigating economic turbulence, reimagining vertical integration. I swear, if he'd said the word synergy one more time, I was going to throw a whiteboard marker at him just to inject some clarity into the room. Finally, the truth peeked through the jargon like a knife tip through silk. In order to remain competitive, we're implementing a strategic realignment. Certain roles may be impacted, and we are committed to a compassionate transition process. There it was. The air thinned. Danielle leaned closer, whispering they're gonna gut engineering. I shook my head too quickly. They wouldn't. We're weeks from launch. Innovate's their golden ticket. I believed it even as I said it. My team turned to me like I was Moses holding the damn roadmap. Greg from Frontend asked, "You think we're safe?" And I gave the kind of nod that leaders are supposed to give, strong, assured, fake as hell. "Let's focus on finishing the build," I said. "They need us." Innovate is the future. It bought me maybe 10 minutes of calm before the panic rebooted. But I kept clinging to the logic. They wouldn't cut me, not the person who built the thing. I was the engine, the brakes, and half the fuel. Cutting me would be like yanking out the transmission before the race. I told myself that, even as I watched Marcy lean toward Mark and give him a tiny, downward nod, like a sniper getting greenlit. He blinked twice, jaw tight, and looked out at the room. Not at me, wouldn't meet my eyes. My stomach dropped. And then I noticed something odd. Kevin's desk across the bullpen. Empty. Not just ran to the bathroom empty. Like cords unplugged, coffee mug gone empty. His whiteboard, once full of half-baked motivational quotes and doodles of God knows what, had been wiped clean. Only thing left was a sticky note that said "Soon fire" with a smirking emoji drawn in Sharpie. Everyone else was buzzing, confused, murmuring theories and timelines. I stood frozen, eyes locked on that damn sticky note. Something wasn't right. Kevin wasn't the type to leave quietly or early, and definitely not without announcing to the entire company Slack that he was pivoting to new opportunities. The meeting wrapped with the usual corporate anesthetic. We'll communicate specifics over the coming days. We value each and every one of you, which is HR code for grab your digital toothbrush. Someone's getting dumped. I returned to my desk, fingers hovering above my keyboard, trying to keep working like I wasn't seeing the first cracks in the hull. My to-do list blinked back at me, full of bugs I no longer trusted Kevin had even attempted to fix. Still, I buried the dread beneath busy work, told myself to breathe, told myself it was just paranoia. But deep down, something icy was crawling through my ribs, and somewhere in my gut already knew I was next. Mark's message came at 11:04 a.m., sharp. Slack pinged with that cheerful little chime, oblivious to the funeral it was delivering. "Can you pop into the conference room for a quick chat? Not grab your laptop, not let's review the roadmap, just a quick chat." That's the corporate equivalent of the Grim Reaper asking if you've got a minute to talk about your future. My stomach folded in on itself. I stood up on autopilot, smoothing my shirt like I was trying to press confidence into the wrinkles. The walk from my desk to the glass-walled tomb was about 12 steps long. 12 slow, echoing thuds on the cheap carpet tiles. My team glanced up. Danielle gave me a tight smile. She knew, they all knew. Mark was already seated, flanked by Marcy from HR, whose smile was as warm as a spam filter. In front of them, a paper folder. My name printed on the corner like a goddamn tombstone. "Have a seat, Susan," Mark said, motioning to the chair across from him. I sat. And then he opened the folder, cleared his throat, and started reading. It was like watching a friend drown while they calmly described the weather. "As part of our ongoing restructuring effort, and in response to market pressures, your position is being eliminated effective immediately, no eye contact." Not once. Just monotone delivery, like he was narrating a nature documentary on Betrayal. Marcy jumped in next. HR voice fully activated. "We're offering you a severance package equivalent to 4 weeks of pay, contingent upon the signing of this NDA and non-compete agreement." I blinked. 4 weeks, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "You're eliminating the person who built Innovate 2 weeks before launch for cost efficiency." Mark shifted in his seat. "It's a difficult time for everyone." "Is it?" I said, leaning forward, voice low and flat. "Because Kevin seems to be doing just fine." That made him flinch. The mask slipped just for a breath, but then it was back on, airtight and suffocating. "This is a business decision. Please understand." Understand? I understood that after 8 years of giving them my nights, my weekends, my life, they were dumping me like expired milk. I understood that Kevin, the networking peacock who once confused a hash map with a breakfast menu, was getting my seat at the table. Marcy slid the paperwork toward me like she was offering a napkin to someone bleeding out. If you'd like to review this with legal counsel, I didn't touch it. I just stared at the nameplate on the glass wall, the one I'd walked past every day. Conference Room C, collaboration, clarity, compassion. What a joke. Security will escort you to collect your belongings, she added, like that was just a routine part of everyone's Thursday. Didn't even let me go back alone. A woman in a blue blazer with a badge I'd never seen before was waiting just outside. Let's go ahead and grab your things, Susan. Grab my things. Not your desk, not your office. Just your things, like I was some temp who'd spilled coffee on the copier. We walked past my team. Everyone avoided my eyes except Greg, who looked like he wanted to throw a chair. Danielle mouthed something, what happened? But I couldn't respond. My throat was filled with glass. And then I saw him. Kevin, waltzing into my office, my damn office, carrying a leather-bound folder labeled in bold, Innovate, Project Lead Transition. He gave me a little nod, like we were co-conspirators in some stupid game. I almost laughed, the absurdity of it. 2 years of work, taken from me with a nod and a script. I turned back just in time to see Mark finally glance up. Just once. Our eyes locked through the glass. Looked small, ashamed maybe, or just afraid I'd make a scene. I didn't. I gathered my things in silence. A coffee mug with a cracked handle. A stack of sticky notes with system architecture sketched in loops and arrows. The USB drive I always kept clipped to my lanyard, containing exactly nothing now that they'd revoked my access. And when I stepped into the elevator, the last thing I saw before the doors shut was Kevin trying to figure out how to unlock my screen. He never did get the passwords. But that was the moment the fire lit. Cold, quiet, and nuclear. The first week felt like drowning in molasses. I slept on the couch with the TV volume set to dull roar and let Netflix auto-load its junk into my brain until even the menu music made me twitch. My inbox was a graveyard of rejection emails and auto-replies that began with, "While your experience is impressive," and ended with nothing. Fridge was a museum of expired condiments. I hadn't worn pants with a button in 6 days. Every day, I opened LinkedIn like it owed me something, typed in senior software engineer, clicked easy apply, and sent my resume into the void while eating cold noodles directly from the takeout box. I didn't cry, not once. It was worse than crying. It was flat, blank, like I'd been unplugged. Then, on day 7, it happened. A friend forwarded me a press release. Just the headline made my left eye twitch. Innovate launches this fall, disrupting efficiency with visionary new leadership. I clicked the link, hand shaking slightly. The company logo, the fake clean typography, the bolded quotes, and there he was. Kevin DeWitt, lead architect, credited as the visionary mind behind Innovate's cutting-edge framework and seamless user integration. Visionary. I snorted so hard I nearly choked on my flat Diet Coke. Kevin couldn't architect a grilled cheese without tripping over the concept of heat. I read the quote 3 times, eyes vibrating. We've reimagined Innovate from the ground up to empower teams across industries. It's about people, not just product. He was parroting my words. I remembered saying that exact phrase in a planning meeting last year while Kevin was too busy Googling how to center a div. And then it hit me. That sharp, electric snap at the base of the skull. Moment despair turns to something else, something serrated and useful. If I couldn't have Innovate, fine, but I could outbuild it. I shut the laptop, shoved the takeout containers off the coffee table, and pulled out the only paper I had nearby, my own damn severance agreement. Flipped it over, grabbed a pen, started sketching. Component diagrams, data flow, permissions matrix. All the things they'd said weren't in the budget when I pitched them last year. Didn't want to pay for better architecture. Cool, I'd build it for free. I named it Phoenix, because if I was going to rise from ashes, I'd do it breathing fire. I worked like a woman possessed, 10-hour sprints that blurred into each other. I stopped brushing my hair. My plants died. I forgot what day it was. My neighbors probably thought I'd died until they caught a glimpse of me in the hallway looking like the ghost of unbilled labor. And I didn't just replicate Innovate. I fixed it. All the Band-Aid solutions, the patch jobs, the ignored feature requests, I built them in, clean and modular and bulletproof. I added localization, accessibility features, stuff Kevin would have called nice-to-haves in that smug, nasal voice of his. And every time I felt tired, every time my wrist ached or my eyes crossed from staring at one too many lines of JavaScript, I thought about that press release, about Kevin's name printed on my work like a thief spray painting his tag on a church window. I started documenting everything, writing README files like letters to my past self. Not corporate crap, just honest notes. Why things were structured a certain way. Why I'd made choices that no product manager ever had time to hear. Somewhere around week 2, I realized I hadn't applied to another job in days. And I didn't care, because this wasn't about finding a new gig anymore. It was about burning the old one to the damn ground. By the time I hit commit on the final line of code, my hands were trembling, not from nerves, but from 3 weeks of living off gas station coffee, protein bars, and revenge. Phoenix was ready. No investors, no budget meetings, no 12-person Slack threads debating the color of a loading spinner. Just clean, brutal code, mine and mine alone. I packaged it, zipped it, and slapped it onto GitHub with a release tag that felt like a war drum, v1.0.0. The README was short. No bullet points, no bloat, no buzzwords. I built this because I believe good software should be accessible. It should work, scale, and be honest about what it does. I was told this wasn't possible, so I made it possible. If it helps you, great. If it inspires you, even better. Susan, then I posted the link on a few dev forums where I'd been lurking for years. Niche ones, no big fish. Just the kind of places where people still argue about semicolon placement and fight over tab spacing like it's religion. One subreddit, one old-school message board, one Slack group full of pissed-off QA engineers. I closed the laptop. Slept for the first time in what felt like a month. Woke up the next morning to 482 GitHub stars. Refreshed. 615. By lunch, Phoenix was trending on the GitHub homepage. By dinner, it had a dedicated subreddit someone else had made. By midnight, it was featured on the front page of Hacker News under the headline, Dev builds open source alternative to bloated corporate tool. It's actually good I sat at my kitchen table in a hoodie that hadn't been washed since Biden took office, staring at my laptop like it was about to bite me. My notifications looked like they'd been strapped to a firework. Forks, pull requests, DMs, messages from people across the planet. Just deployed Phoenix at my startup, cuts our load time in half. Been trying to build something like this for years. Thank you. This is what Innovate should have been. Know who you were until today. Now I owe you a beer and maybe my job. And then came the blog. Some tech journalist I vaguely recognized from Twitter, Jason Duke, ran a site called CodeCrank, posted a side-by-side comparison of Phoenix and Innovate. His title was straight gasoline. Is this open source project what Innovate was supposed to be? He didn't pull punches. Called out the bloat in Innovate's design, the sluggish onboarding, laughable scalability claims. Meanwhile, Phoenix got praised for its elegant simplicity, modular integrity, and the kind of documentation you trade organs for. The article ended with, if you've ever wanted to see what a pissed-off genius can do in 3 weeks, check Phoenix. Then ask why the people making the decisions at these companies aren't the ones writing the code. I laughed so hard I choked on my 4th mug of instant coffee. Kevin's name wasn't mentioned once. By day 3, venture capitalists were emailing me. CTOs were asking for consulting rates. Some guy from Berlin wanted to fly me out to keynote a conference. I said no to everything. I wasn't ready to leave the cave just yet. I just kept watching the download count tick up. 10,000, 30, 50. Numbers Innovate would kill for and hadn't hit in a year. But it wasn't the numbers that got me. It was the feeling. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. Not just a ghost of some corporate cog that got yanked out and replaced by a discount knockoff. I was building again, not under someone's thumb, not under threat of a budget cut or a pivot or a fake smile performance review. And people saw it. They saw me. The world had called my firing a restructuring. Phoenix was my rebuttal. The envelope showed up 3 days after Phoenix hit 100,000 downloads, hand-delivered, thick, stiff paper like it had been forged in the fires of petty corporate vengeance. Inside, a cease and desist from my former employer. 4 pages of legalese laced with passive-aggressive poison, accusing me of unlawful misappropriation of proprietary code, violation of trade secret statutes, and my personal favorite, reputational interference via intentional public release of a competing product. I sat at my kitchen table with the letter in one hand and a spoonful of peanut butter in the other, rereading that last line until I laughed so hard the spoon clanged against the counter. They were scared. I folded the letter once, very carefully, and used it to level the one wobbly leg on my coffee table. It was the first useful thing that company had produced in years. But the glee didn't last. Later that day, Phoenix's GitHub repo started filling up with oddly coordinated criticism. New accounts, all less than 48 hours old. Comments about security vulnerabilities, copied logic, ethical red flags. One particularly rabid account posted, "This is just a reskinned version of Innovate's private repo, probably reverse-engineered after she was fired for misconduct." Oh, okay. So now I'd been fired for misconduct. That's cute. What's next? Embezzlement? Arson? Killed JFK? I clicked through the profiles, all empty. No history, no contributions, nothing. But one of them, DevTruth101, left a comment on a commit that used a phrase only a few people would recognize. "Your RBAC still depends on the old UMF pipeline. Guess you didn't rebuild it from scratch." UMF, Unified Mapping Framework. A phrase from a deprecated architecture document I'd written 3 years ago, back when Innovate still fit on a whiteboard. That term never made it into production, never left our private Slack. Only 4 people had ever used it, including me, Mark, Kevin, and Kevin's lunch buddy Trevor from security. Bingo. So Kevin was pulling strings now, whispering to legal, mobilizing burner accounts like he was leading a digital smear campaign from his leather chair and oat milk latte bunker. I won't lie, there was a moment, maybe 20 minutes, where the fear came clawing back. The what ifs. The what if they sue for real? The what if my repo gets taken down? The what if I end up blacklisted from the industry I just proved I could still dominate? But then something incredible happened. The community responded. Real devs, ones with profiles, history, and actual working brain cells, started replying to the trolls, calling out the nonsense. One user ran a full code diff between Phoenix and Innovate's last public beta and posted the results. 0 overlap. Not even shared naming conventions. A well-known engineer from the Rust community dropped a tweet that went semi-viral. "This cease and desist sounds like a company mad they lost to someone better, faster, and freer." Phoenix isn't just legit. It's cleaner than most VC-funded vaporware I've seen in years. Even CodeCrank posted a follow-up article titled, "Phoenix Gets Lawyered, and the Internet Isn't Buying It." The tide turned fast. For every anonymous troll, 5 new contributors joined Phoenix. People submitted pull requests, offered translations, volunteered for QA. One woman from Argentina DM'd me saying her nonprofit just started using Phoenix for free, and that their old system cost them nearly 12% of their operating budget. I stared at that message for a long time. That's when the fear cracked and something else poured in, defiance. I wasn't backing down, not now. Not when people were using my code to do actual good in the world while my old bosses were busy playing Reddit sock puppet theater. They'd fired me thinking I'd fade away, that I'd quietly move on, maybe take up pottery and forget I ever existed in their budget spreadsheet. But now they knew. I wasn't gone. I was winning. Letter was still under my coffee table when I decided to go full bloodhound. It wasn't enough to outcode them anymore. Wasn't enough to slap together beautiful logic and hope the truth would magically rise from the repo like a digital Lazarus. No, if they were going to accuse me of stealing what I built, then I'd give them something they couldn't refactor out of the narrative. Proof. Not PR, not reputation. Receipts. I cracked open my old external drive, one of those clunky black boxes I hadn't touched since 2019. Plugged it in, watched the light flicker like a dying firefly, and prayed to the gods of rusted backups. Bingo. Buried in a folder named Q2Proj Junk Nodeleet, because naming things with dignity is a luxury you stop affording in Sprint Week, was the motherlode. Slide decks, architecture sketches, sprint outlines, and emails. Oh God, the emails. Hundreds of them, synced from my personal G drive, long before they moved everyone to their shiny internal comm system. Drafts, forwards, notes. Some of them made me laugh. One titled, "Kevin really thinks we need to blockchain the login screen?" But most were just raw documentation of who did what and when. I sorted by sender, searched Mark. Then I found it. The first email I ever sent him pitching the foundation for Innovate. Back when it was still called Leap. Back when it was barely more than a cluster of napkin diagrams and delusions of grandeur. I'd written him a 3-page breakdown of how we could build a scalable framework for a synchronous task, routing with user permissions baked into the core. His reply, "This is brilliant. Clean, lean, and 10 steps ahead of what other companies are fumbling toward." But then, 2 days later, I found the real prize. He'd forwarded that exact email to Gavin, the CEO. Same subject line, same content, but with one extra sentence tacked onto the top. We can develop this in-house with her, then transition to a more cost-effective long-term resource once the architecture is stable. I stared at it like it was a crime scene. Transition, that was the plan. That was always the plan. Get the blueprint out of my brain, then swap me out like a printer cartridge. Like I was nothing but a vessel, useful only until the ink ran dry. I kept digging, found old sprint reports with my name on every design decision. Git logs backing up who committed what. Meeting transcripts where Kevin literally asked how APIs worked while I whiteboarded them for him like a goddamn kindergarten teacher. The pieces locked into place. They never wanted me for the long haul. I wasn't the long-term asset. I was the scaffolding. Build the building, then rip me down before launch and slap Kevin's face on the brochure. But now, scaffolding had teeth. I spent the next 48 hours assembling the dossier, not just to protect myself, but to strike back. Not petty screenshots or out-of-context Slack messages. No, this was curated, time-stamped, contextualized truth. I labeled it Phoenix Roots, a timeline of ownership inside, the original project pitch with my metadata, the commit logs, the time-stamped backup plan, the damming forward from Mark to Gavin. I encrypted it, duplicated it, sent copies to 2 lawyers, 1 friend, 1 pitbull. And just for good measure, I uploaded a redacted version to a private, invitation-only repo. Not public, not yet. This wasn't a bluff. This was a blade. Because when the time came, and I knew it would come, I wasn't just going to defend my name. I was going to obliterate theirs. The email hit my inbox on a Wednesday afternoon, dressed in its finest marketing fluff. Join us for the official launch of Innovate, the future of team empowerment. Splashy graphic, countdown timer. A big shiny button that said reserve your spot now, like they were selling concert tickets instead of the bastardized remains of my work. Mark and Kevin were hosting a live-streamed event in 7 days. Press invited, VC eyes watching, hashtags already trending, #innovate launch, #reimagine productivity, #built for the future. I almost closed the browser, almost let the bile rise and burn through the moment. But then I thought, no, they picked their stage. I'd pick my timing. I went back into the archives, one more pass. One more dig through the dark corners of my personal backups, just to make sure the knife I was about to throw was sharpened to a monomolecular edge. That's when I found it, buried inside a folder labeled MGTM Backup, nested under 6 other folders with names like Old Crap Do Not Delete. I opened a single file, Strategic Roles Q3 Prep PPTX, and there it was. A full internal slide deck, timestamped 4 weeks before I was let go. Slide 1. Q3 Strategic Realignment Plan Confidential Draft, Slide 3. Key Personnel Transition Proposals, Slide 6. Susan W. Transition Phase. Terminate role by end of month. Reassign responsibilities to Kevin D. Slide 8. Objective. Retain architecture. Minimize personnel cost by 1.8 FTEs. Mitigate risk via NDA enforcement. Do not disclose strategy externally. It got worse. Slide 12. Exit communication strategy talking points for M. Green, and below that, bullet points. Market pressures require leaner operations. Value your contributions immensely. This decision is not a reflection of your performance. The company is evolving and this role is no longer sustainable. It was word for word what Mark said to me in the glass room. He didn't just read from a script, he read from this script. I sat there in silence, not angry, not sad, still, cold. The kind of stillness that comes right before a blade is drawn. They hadn't just fired me. They hadn't just replaced me. He had planned it down to the sentence. Like I was just a variable to be cleared out of memory. I could feel the power shift, slowly, like tectonic plates grinding. Because now, I didn't just have the receipts. I had the blueprints for their betrayal. The before, the during, and the cleanup strategy they wrapped in buzzwords and sent to HR. The story wasn't just mine anymore. It was theirs, and it reeked. I opened the Phoenix repo and added one more update. A quiet little log note referencing performance boost, decoupled legacy control structure. Inside the comment thread, buried like a gift, I attached an encrypted PDF of the full slide deck. Private for now. Hidden in plain sight. The match was lit. I wasn't going to release it today, not tomorrow. But when the curtain rose, Kevin and Mark took their stage and opened their mouths to sell my ghost back to the world as their invention. I'd be waiting. And when it dropped, no one would remember the launch of Innovate. They'd remember the implosion. They started 5 minutes late. That alone told me things weren't going smoothly. The Innovate launch was being live-streamed across every platform they could cram it into: YouTube, LinkedIn, even Facebook for the tech-challenged investors who still thought cloud computing meant actual weather. Kevin strutted onstage first. Tan blazer, crisp jeans, wireless mic curled around his jaw like a parasite. He opened with a joke about navigating change and team synergy, but his voice cracked at the word seamless, which I found poetic. Mark followed, sweaty, smiling too wide. His left eye twitched. The kind of twitch that screams, are bleeding internally but trying to pretend we're dancing. Behind them, a massive LED screen blinked out the words. Innovate 1.0, powering your tomorrow chat was already unhinged. Why won't it deploy? 404 on the sign-up page. Lol, is this an alpha or are we the QA team? Phoenix works better and it's free. Just sayin'. And then came the tweets. Screenshots of bugs I'd predicted and fixed months ago in Phoenix. User posted, tried importing to Innovate, crashed my pipeline. Switched to Phoenix, deployed in 11 minutes. Guess I found the real MVP. It was time. I opened my blog draft, final line blinking. My hands were steady. The title, here's why Phoenix is free, and here's the real expense they cut. I hit publish. Within 60 seconds, it was spreading like dry brush fire. Inside the post, the original project proposal, dated and authored by me. Email threads showing praise from Mark, followed by his forward to Gavin. The pre-termination slide deck with the exact talking points he recited. A side-by-side breakdown of Phoenix and Innovate. A time-stamped backup proving Phoenix was built clean from scratch. And finally, the piece de resistance. When they fired me, they didn't just cut costs. They cut ethics. They cut truth. Phoenix wasn't made to compete. It was made to survive. But now it thrives. At the bottom, a link to the Phoenix repo. Star count, climbing like a rocket strapped to caffeine. The Innovate livestream lagged, then stuttered. Kevin paused mid-sentence. Mark leaned into the mic and tried to pivot into damage control, mumbling something about misunderstandings and ownership nuances. The chat, unhinged. OMG, the blog flushed face, they really said cost-efficient betrayal, huh? Pack it up, boys. Phoenix just buried you. Kevin, you absolute leech. I didn't gloat. I didn't scream. I just sat back and watched. Watched their perfect narrative crumble under the weight of their own receipts. Watched Kevin's face flicker between confusion and dread. Watched Mark sweat through his shirt like a guilty preacher under hot lights. Watched the number of Phoenix downloads pass Innovate's entire first-year projection. Live, on screen, with confetti still falling behind them. My phone started buzzing. Voicemails, emails, linked in DMs from CTOs, VC firms, startup accelerators. Offers with numbers that would have made my pre-fired self faint. I didn't open a single one. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked outside into the sunlight for the first time in 3 days. Somewhere behind me, in a corporate server room bathed in fluorescent regret, a man in a tan blazer was realizing that visionary doesn't mean a damn thing when the person you stole from documented everything. I didn't just win. I made sure no one could ever rewrite what happened. Not Mark, not Kevin, not 1,000 press releases or legal letters. The code stood. The story stood. And Phoenix, it soared. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.